On this episode of UMTV News, we bring you the latest on President Trump's tariffs, including rising concerns and how other countries are responding.
Plus, we'll break down the work underway to recover remains following the deadly crash in the Potomac River and how those affected are dealing with the loss of loved ones.
And later on, we'll share a special story on one nurse in New Orleans who will receive the experience of a lifetime for her generous work.
These stories and more on today's program. UMTV News starts right now.
Hello and welcome to UMTV News. I'm John Stanley.
And I'm Alana Vieira. Thank you for joining us. Concerns about inflation from U.S. tariffs is not over yet. China is retaliating now that American companies must pay 10% extra on Chinese imports. Beijing is issuing tariffs on certain items from the U.S., creating export controls and more. Mexico and Canada appear to have escaped similar fates for the moment. Now, other U.S. trade partners are worried they are next.
The Union will respond firmly.
Europe is bracing for a potential trade showdown with the U.S. An American tariff on Chinese imports takes effect today.
It will definitely happen with the European Union, I can tell you that, because they've really taken advantage of us. And, we have over a $300 billion deficit.
The president of the European Commission says she wants to start negotiations with the U.S. early. That's instead of waiting for President Donald Trump to make good on his tariff threats.
The European Union is prepared for a robust but constructive dialogue with the United States.
Trump says he plans to have such a dialogue with Beijing soon. As of today, U.S.-based companies must pay a 10% tariff on Chinese imports. China says it's responding with tariffs on a few U.S. exports after an initially muted response.
China has long been preparing for less exposure to the U.S.
Trump says he's postponing 25% of tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports, which many economists call inflationary. Trump says those countries have made concession around border security. Views are mixed on whether that dispute with America's neighbors was worth it.
There's a cost to U.S. credibility and there's a cost to Trump's credibility.
I think in the case of Canada, it probably is a negotiating tactic. In the case of Mexico, we have to get their attention.
In response to the 10% tariffs that Trump has placed on Chinese imports, China has responded with its own tariffs of 10 or 15% on some American imports, such as energy and vehicles. They will take effect next week. China also placed new restrictions on the export of dozens of metal and products, including materials used to make things like solar cells.
Donald Trump also is acting on a promise he made back in September to abolish the Department of Education. According to two sources, the Trump administration has started to draft an executive order that could eventually get rid of the DOE. However, for those in the thick of this change, it's become a time for protest.
So when we're talking about our students, their families, their past, their identities, and we're demanding to be able to teach the truth every day, it's about us in Chicago. It's about not hiding or disguising the blood, sweat, and tears that it took to build those skyscrapers that towered from downtown. And we are here today to defend our students. Is that right? That's right.
Yeah.
This is not the first time the U.S. has tried to either abolish a department or merge it with another agency, but previous attempts have failed to get backing from Congress. During the first Trump administration, an attempt to cut the DOE's budget failed, and the Republican-led Congress ended up providing more funding. The Department of Education has stood as a federal agency since 1979 when it was established as part of the late Jimmy Carter's administration.
Recovery teams continue to remove plane debris from the Potomac River this morning following last week's devastating crash near Washington, D.C. A total of 67 died when a military helicopter collided with a passenger jet. Authorities continue to analyze critical data received from the crash site. Recordings from the Army helicopter black box suggest that the craft took a slight rise in the last moments before the collision crew have identified 55 victims from the crash. But as the work continues, families mourn from the loss of their loved ones.
Feels unreal. I go through these moments of like extreme like sadness and tears, and then I get flat and numb, and and then I feel guilty that I'm not just crying all the time, but it's just been hard. It's been really hard.
The Federal Aviation Association and National Transportation Safety Board continue to lead the investigation behind the cause of the crash. An official report is expected to be released by both organizations within the next month.
Allie Litzinger traveled to Tampa to cover the event and joins us now live with more. Allie?
It's estimated that over 300,000 people attended the event just a few weekends ago. With so many people in one small area, safety and security becomes a major concern. Like many attendees of the annual Gasparilla Festival in Tampa, Florida, Nathan Mechelon of Miami Beach says he was worried about security at this year's event, especially after the recent deadly attack in New Orleans. That's why Nathan says he was relieved to learn that this year's event would have more security than usual.
I think compared to years previous, the security has been very much enhanced. I think you can very much feel an evident police presence.
And according to him, feeling safe is the key to having fun at such a big event.
Absolute blast. I mean, the weather's great, the people are great, and just being able to bring an environment where people can feel happy, feel at peace, feel safe, and just feel happy to celebrate the pride of Tampa Bay and Gasparilla. What more could you ask for?
Over 300,000 people showed up in their pirate best for the 120th edition of Gasparilla this year. The FBI, Tampa Police, and the Coast Guard were patrolling from the sky, the water, on land, and even in nearby neighborhoods. A much bigger presence than usual after the news broke that the New Orleans attacker was in Tampa just 65 days before he drove a pickup truck into the crowd on Bourbon Street, killing 15 people. And this led to speculations that Gasparilla might also be targeted. As to why the attacker was in Tampa remains unknown.
In preparation for this event, we plan, we train, numerous procedures are put into place, personnel are gathered there along the parade routes, and we'll have numerous personnel, fire and medical personnel throughout the parade route.
There were over 20 law enforcement agencies and hundreds of police officers on foot patrolling the parade route. There were cameras spread throughout the area that allowed officers to get a closer look in big crowd groupings. Barriers were also implemented to stop any unwarranted vehicle from entering the area. And many attendees at Gasparilla said they're grateful to the authorities for this extra layer of security.
Happy Gasparilla, and thank you to all who've taken part in helping make this area feel safe.
This year's Gasparilla went off without a hitch. The biggest concern? Maybe just a few drunken pirates. Allie Litzinger, live for UMTV.
Thank you, Allie. And coming up, we'll bring you the latest on weather whiplash hitting the nation.
Will Americans see sunnier skies in the days ahead? We will check in with our student meteorologist.
Sunday is around the corner, and as Americans gear up for an exciting weekend, officials are doubling down on security.
These stories and more when we return.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Now, Alanis, I don't know about you, but it's been feeling so nice outside whenever I leave the house.
I know, John. This weather has been absolutely perfect, and I really hope it stays like this for a while.
Well, let's check in with student meteorologist Quinn Davidson in studio on whether or not your wish will come true. Quinn?
Well, call me Santa, because your wish is coming true. It is the beautiful conditions that are going to prevail across South Florida this weekend. We have temperatures right now in the 80s, upper 70s, all across the southern peninsula. And we do have the chance of a spotty shower till we have those warm winds coming off from that southeast direction, which is creating a more humid air mass over the next few days for us. So you'll be seeing that humidity increase just a bit. But those shower chances are looking to be more focused towards interior and southwest Florida. And on National Weather Service Miami, it is Rip Current Safety Week, so we are making sure you know what to do when you're in a rip current. If you are ever caught, make sure you are swimming parallel to shore. And never swim at a beach without a lifeguard. That is the #1 rule. And for our future, we see 6 to 10 days, much warmer than average conditions here in South Florida. Temperatures are going to likely remain above that temperature threshold. And our hourly forecast throughout the night tonight, the only thing of note is fog is possible overnight, but that is also looking to be more towards interior and southwest Florida. And our 7-day forecast, temperatures every single day in the upper 70s and low 80s. Lots of sunshine and very, very low rain chances. So one of those situations where you're just going to want to head outside.
Thank you, Quinn. We may be feeling warmer weather down south, but some parts of the U.S. are being struck with record-breaking temperature drops. The northwestern belt was hit with a cold front this week. Parts of Washington experienced heavy snowfall, causing multiple school closures and travel advisories that are expected to last through Wednesday. In Northern California, snow and rainfall caused hazardous conditions across some counties. Some rain has struck parts of the state in the last few days, causing flooding and mudslides in the areas affected by the recent wildfires. Authorities advise residents to stay up to date with any warnings from the National Weather Service. Conditions are expected to improve later this week.
The Grammys went live on Saturday, and despite new records and star-studded performances, viewers were just not feeling starstruck. The event took a 9% loss in viewership, breaking a 3-year streak in rising streams. CBS and Paramount Plus both recorded drop in watch time, despite the night's historic wins. It was not too much of a setback. The Grammys still take the lead in award show view counts since the pandemic. The ceremony raised $9 million for relief efforts from the LA wildfires.
One of the most shocking trades in the NBA history was announced on Saturday night, sending Dallas Mavericks superstar Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. Mavericks fans wearing Doncic's number 77's jersey gathered outside American Airlines Center on Sunday to show their unhappiness with the team's moves. Some carried a casket while others carried signs. Denouncing the trade, one fan held up a sign calling it the worst trade in NBA history. Doncic led the league in points per game last season with 33.9 and led the Mavericks to the NBA Finals. Despite the efforts, the team has decided to ship him off to the Lakers, while he'll join superstar LeBron James and do what he can do to challenge for an NBA title.
Trump has announced that he will attend Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans on Sunday, which would make him the first sitting president to do so. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, who is a Louisiana native, is considering joining Trump, although the guest list is still being prepared. The Super Bowl always has high security presence, even when the president is not there. But preparations will be heightened ahead of Trump's attendance. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem visited New Orleans' attack site and spoke on the preparations for Sunday's game. New Orleans is expecting more than 300,000 visitors this weekend for the Super Bowl. The Department of Homeland Security is deploying more than 2,500 law enforcement officers, state troopers, and National Guard troops to patrol the event.
And speaking of the big game, an unsung hero will also be in attendance in New Orleans on Sunday. Stevie Kells is a clinical nurse supervisor from Louisiana. She was gifted 2 tickets to the big game. Kells provided care to people hurt in the New Year Day terror attack on Bourbon Street. Ashley Furniture and NFL player Demario Davis teamed up to provide the tickets in an appreciation of her heroic efforts. Kel says she's glad she was able to help out the victims and is thrilled to attend the big game alongside her boyfriend. Now, John, I wish I got free tickets to that game.
I know, I'm super excited to see who's going to win. I think it's going to be a great game, 2 really great teams. That's all the time we have for today's program. Thank you for joining us here on UMTV News.
We'll be back next week at the same time. Have a good night.